Good afternoon, Clint. How you doing? You well?
I'm very well, very well. Thanks for having me.
No, good. It's a real pleasure. I'm told, Clint, that Death of England, Face to Face, and the film Sus, in which you star with Rafe Spall. Is that right? Have I got that correct?
Yeah.
They both feature in the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival taking place all over the country. Started last week. I'm sure ardent Voice newspaper readers will have the full schedule because they went and bought the newspaper early. Tell me more, sir.
So it started out as a piece that was just about Michael, the character Michael, who's a white man in his 30s who's dealing with his parents, his legacy, his parents, a racist legacy. And his best friend is Delroy. And so what happened was in 2020, we did a one-man show here with Michael character, which starred Rafe Spall. That went down amazingly well. And so then we were asked to do part 2, which was Delroy, his best mate. And it was kind of in answer to the same issues that Michael was facing, but a little bit in the future. So the storytelling style means that you can flash back and go back to different times. So they end up speaking into the same situations, but later on in the timeline. And so we kind of what me and Roy were always trying to do was talking to the Black experience really, and what the thing that enabled everybody to feel part of it was ironically starting with a white perspective that is talking about the situations that we as Black people find ourselves in. So we kind of understood what happens to us through their lens. And then the second one, as I said, was Delroy. Then, it was lockdown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've been offered the commission to write another one. But as you know, lockdown happened and the National had the space free, i.e. the theatres were free. And Rufus, the artistic director here, thought of making films in that gap. And so he offered us the chance to make a third installment. So they're all standalone projects. So you can actually just see one and you'll still get that element of the story. But if you want to see all 3, you can, because you can go to NT at Home. And on NT at Home, you can see part 1, part 2, and the film, Death of England Face to Face, which we're so proud to have as part of the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival. So that's playing on the 19th. That's this Monday at Rich Mix. And myself and the brilliant Giles Torreira will be there to answer any questions afterwards. So the story of that is them alone during lockdown, having to answer and being forced to answer all the issues that happened in episode 1 and episode 2. But again, I must expressly say that we've made every effort to make them feel like standalone episodes. So you don't miss anything. You get a deeper understanding, of course, if you watch 1 and 2, but you can just watch the film, which I have to be big-headed now. I'm going to do it because I have to. We got nominated for BAFTA, nominated for the RTS, which is Royal Television Society Award, got nominated for Broadcast Award, got nominated for Broadcast Digital Award. There was do you know what? Shame. We got nominated for so many awards, I've now forgotten 2 of them. There was a European one that we got nominated for.
Were you surprised it was received so well?
Listen, it's incredible. I mean, it's for a theatre to be making films, just that sentence alone makes you know that, it's unheard of. We're not meant to be making films when we make theatre. for us to be in a position, for me to be in a position, I've been trying to direct films, for the last 15, 20 years. And the type of stories that I've wanted to tell, i.e. stories that really spoke into the Black experience here, were usually answered with replies of, oh, will there be an audience? Oh, does that really happen to Black people? Oh, it's a bit difficult to be putting on Black leads right now. Oh, the amount of excuses that I've been faced with in the film industry. And, to be really frank, a lot of them, because of the successes that I've had right now, have come back to me and apologized. They've literally had to come back and apologize because, George Floyd made them recognize that it was really their biases that they were exposing. And also that there is an audience for Black storytelling and stories that have Black people as the lead characters, and stories that frankly, talking to our experience here. So be assured that Deaf of England, it tests us all. We're not shying in. We're not pulling any punches, I suppose is the term, really. And that's for Black people understanding ourselves or recognizing ourselves. And for our white counterparts, our British white counterparts, to see the effects of the way that they have, what's the word, welcomed us and allowed us, and there's many terms that can be used about the way they've treated us, which I probably shouldn't say on this platform. But
we do know what you're talking about, and there will be a day where we can just say it without fear of any kind of consequence or repercussions, because truth is truth, right? But we digress slightly. I wanna home in on the fact that there's a bit of an evolution in the whole Deaf of England process about to occur.
So this is the first time I'm actually saying this to the public. So I feel really fortunate. Of course, it's because of the success of the pieces, but I feel very, very lucky to say that we are answering the issues in the sense that it's always been very male heavy. It's been the two men for the two one-man shows, and then the film about two men. I can now announce that there's going to be Deaf of England Closing Time, which will star Hayley Squires and the wonderful Jo Martin, who everybody knows is our Doctor Who at present. I've known Jo through Theatre Royal Stratford East for the last 30 years. She is one of the most amazing, fantastic, funny, talented actresses on the face of this earth, and is finally getting her day in terms of the amount of work she's getting. People might recognise that she's just got a film out right now that's in cinemas with one of the Baldwin brothers, and she's one of the stars of that, and they'll recognise her from The Crouches and all this sort of stuff, and obviously Doctor Who. She is now doing the two-hander with us at the National, which will open in September, and again, it's called Deaf of England Closing Time. It is funny. It is provocative. Provocative. We put the same sort of efforts into trying to talk the truth, trying to really say what it feels like to be rubbing up against a country that doesn't necessarily want you there, and then the complications of interrelations with in a working class environment that allow us to have a real deep heartfelt conversation about what happens when you get along, and where there is love involved, and where there is family ties involved, actually still lead to things needing to be said, things needed to be articulated. And that experience, it being theatre, you're allowed to say more in theatre. You're allowed to, because obviously it's much more around the word, around the conversation that you're actually having inside a piece. So I think people will be challenged in some respects. I think people will feel heartened that those conversations are happening out in the world. I'm pretty confident of that. So please get yourself down to the National Theatre in late September to see Deaf of England closing time, as well as Deaf of England face to face this Monday.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate you giving us the heads up, the exclusive. Before we speak about Sus, the film Sus, a bit about you, sir. You're currently Deputy Artistic Director at the National Theatre. Congrats on that. You've been in that position since 2021. I believe we covered it. Since that was announced, though, how have things been? How's the landscape been? What change are you bringing?
Well, you know, I think that it's been tough, because obviously the 2021 was still COVID times. Coming out of COVID, financially, we've been cash strapped, to be frank. It's been really pleasing that everybody's been on board in trying to get the things that I want implemented in the building. So, you know, I think there's definitely been a recognition that the programming has widened in terms of its representation. It's interesting, because I think what it was doing before, because while Rufus was there, or when Rufus came, I think it was after the first 4 or 5 years, it kind of takes that long to change the actual, the programming, but change the actual destination of the building. And there's been certain interventions that we've come in and made, or that I've asked for. One of them has been a design course that is specifically for the global majority, because what was happening before was, they'd put on a play that had black people in it, or there'd be a certain amount, because there was quotas, so they'd always be going, okay, we've got to answer these quotas, but they weren't necessarily answering quotas in regards to writers and directors and crew and designers, etc. So that has been a real task, because it's not just about the desire, it's about the skill base. And then what happens is the few global majority artists that were prepared to stay in the industry, even though they couldn't get any work because some people weren't employing them, are now working too much. When I say too much, I just mean that everything is thrown at them. And then suddenly they're not available. There's also the issue we found that working at this scale, because all the three buildings, all the three theatres are bigger theatres than any of the other theatres in the country, I think, except for the Lyric, in terms of 450 seats. And so finding people that can work at this scale has been difficult, to try and get them up to, listen, it's such a weird, I feel anti-Clint by saying some of the things I say, because before I got into the building, I was always like, that space is a space we're talking about. You know what I mean? And we need the chance to fail. But believe me, no one wants to fail at this level. So there's a responsibility that I have to make sure that people are held and looked after, and have a trajectory that is safe for them to be able to follow. So that was one of the major things that I'm really, really pleased about implementing. Of course, there's loads of, stuff inside the building in terms of representation, in terms of having different bodies come in to examine how the processes that the building work under and used to work under, to see how we can develop our relationships with global majority. All those sort of things I think most industries are doing. So we've definitely done those, but it's the overarching stuff, like audiences. So I've been really trying to find ways to not just encourage Black audiences, but actually enable audiences to feel like the building belongs to them, because it does. So we have changed some of the programming in terms of it feeling much more working class. And that obviously means that more global majority people will feel like it's for them, because it was predominantly a middle class venture, the National Theatre. And so I'm sure if people really look at the programming, they'd actually see a kind of shift in that. And the feeling is definitely getting better. What we also did was, and people will be able to really notice it with the play that we're going to announce very soon, called The Effect, which what we're doing is a membership deal for global majority. And that, I have to say, took ages to kind of bottom out and work out a way that people weren't
discriminated against.
Well, that's the word.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Ironic, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it's the dancing I had to do to make it clear that actually at this stage we almost need discrimination to make the balance right. And so, that is being implemented. So, because I want the building.
Sorry to cut you, but I was going to say, just to redressing the balance by default is actually prioritizing one group of people over another, right? So
exactly.
You can't get away from it, right?
You can't get away from it. You literally can't get away from it. And so we've tried to find different ways in which we can get away with it, basically.
No, understood.
I think we finally found some. So we're still doing a trial with The Effect. So anybody looking for tickets for The Effect, they'll find that there's a way of becoming a member from the global, if you're part of the global majority, that wasn't available before. And that's what I want. I want Black people to be members. I want global majority members of the National Theatre. When I grew up at Theatre Royal Stratford East, part of the reason that it became a theatre that was trusted by the global majority was because it gave away tickets for the previews to nurses. Now, my mum was at Longthorn Hospital, and all the previews, they could go in for free. And so I grew up with this feeling that, oh yeah, my mum, what's your mum doing? So she's gone to the theatre. So local theatre was my local theatre because my mum went there. Do you know what I mean? And it didn't matter what show it was. She wasn't necessarily going to see a black show or a white show. She was going to see the show that was on there because it was
access was key, right? Access
was key. And so, but I suppose at the heart, what I'm trying to say is that just the notion that my mum felt comfortable going in that building meant it was okay for me to go into that building. And again, for me, it isn't about, look, for global majority work, we get Black people through the door. And I still don't think we get enough, but we get Black people through the door. And I suppose the other issue is, of course, we can sell out and still not get enough Black people through the door. And so there's this balance. There's this kind of, balance is the wrong word. there's this issue where it's a hit show, but unfortunately, it's only 30% black people that manage to go and see it.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I was talking to Brenda Edwards the other day. She's involved in We Will Rock You,
Right.
Ben Elton. And she was saying the same thing as you. What can we do to get more black people through the door? How do we, engage with them so that they are responsive to the marketing, the PR, and all that goes out? And I personally think that that's where some refinement needs to take place.
I don't think it's about publicity. I think it's about trust. I genuinely, and this is after 30 odd years of experience in this, and asking the same questions and being involved in things where we have got it out to the black community in terms of press, in terms of tweets, in terms of it's trust. It's trust in a building. We can't. It's a trust in a building, and it's also trust in British work. I guarantee you, if we had an American over here of equal status of equal status, they're more likely to turn up or see and pay for the American than they are the British staff. We don't hold ourselves up enough.
I know I'm running up close to my hour, so it'd be remiss of me. It would be remiss of me not to ask you, before we get stuck into sus, about the importance of this Windrush Caribbean Film Festival. Just your own perspective on that.
Oh, it's massive. Look, it's so important for the artists. For me, it means so. It goes right back to what we were talking about in terms of something that feels geared towards us. Therefore, it's curated. Therefore, because it's curated towards us, we trust the work that is on there. And that has always been our issue, is who's curating it? Who decides what images of ourselves should be out there? And a massive point about me being in this position that I'm in right now is that the building automatically has a bit more trust, because people go, oh, it's right. There's somebody in there who looks like me, who's making decisions about how we look, how we're represented. When we're not represented, what work is going on that won't be offensive to me? Because we know that we've turned up to things and I'm actually offended. And so having something like the Windrush Film Festival is a godsend. I think it's so important that we as Caribbeans, because there's been with the inclusion of, because like you asked me about global majority, because now our issues have been somewhat spread amongst other ethnic minorities, wrongly, rightly, whatever. It means that sometimes the specificity of our struggle, the specificity of our experience is sometimes missed. And so again, having something that feels absolutely geared to our experience and our timeline here, it's very telling that we chose to call it the Windrush. It wasn't just a Caribbean Film Festival, it's the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival, which completely means that we're talking about a timeline of our experience in this country. And that, to me, is really important. And so to have Sus and Death of England, which Sus is set in the 70s, Death of England is set today. You kind of go, oh, wow, okay, this is how far we've spanned here. This is how long we've been telling stories about ourselves here. I think there's for me personally, there's a beautiful symmetry about my work and my experience, our stories, and our ability to make the work.
Thank you for touching on Sus. I was going to ask you that next anyway. For those who haven't seen it, please, when's it showing?
So Sus is on the 23rd at Ritzy.
At Ritzy. If you had the time, those who are watching, listening, do go and take that in, because it's got a twist at the end that I think a lot of people it will serve as a surprise for a lot of people.
Again, that film was so hard to make. We made that film for peanuts. In fact, I didn't get paid. I've never made 1p from that film. It's played all over the world. It was on BBC Films for how many years? It's still on right now. It's in cinemas, etc. And the only way to get the money to make it was if I didn't get paid. And I don't know if you know, I also co-produced it as well. So all that work, because I believed in what the story was trying to say. I believed in it was really important. But it's a testament to the time that I could now make something like Death of England at the National Theatre, and a three-hander that also comes from theatre, and not get a penny. Yet they both have been recognised to such an extent, and still played, etc., to such an extent that it really shows where we are in the industry, in the world, in terms of black storytelling.
Clint Dyer, the first interview of a few that's going to take place this year. So thank you for your time.
Great.
Really appreciate it. For those watching, the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival ends at the end of this month. So do yourself a favor, check out the website. There is something there for everybody. Trust me, it's the team down there have done really, really well. So
they have them there,
do your best to support that. Clint, really appreciate it. We're gonna sit down again soon. So unless there's anything else you want to share with us before we part ways, sir, appreciate it.
No, I just hope that you all can make it down there. Thanks again, Joel, for this exposure, because again, it's about the exposure, and the truth is, I really want black audiences to see my work, because that's who I'm talking to. And I've lived in an industry that, of course, I'm grateful for, or any audience member that decides to come. I'd love to be packed out with my people. That's the truth of the matter.
on that note, I look forward to your building being packed to the rafters, my friend. Yeah, appreciate your time.
Thank you.